Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading. We'll be beginning Canto 7 from The Brilliant as the Sun by Krishna Dham and Chitamani Dham Mataji. First of all, we'll read the introduction and then we'll begin chapter 1 of the Canto 7, The Science of God. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamam vande shigrum dintarinam paramananda madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So the studious reader will know that the Srimad Bhagavatam discusses 10 subject matters. These are listed in the second canto, 10th chapter, verse 1 as follows: creation, subcreation, the planetary systems, the Lord's protection, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the science of God, returning home back to Godhead, liberation, and the Samam Bonam. The science of God is Srila Prabhupada's translation of Isha Anukatha, the 7th item in the verse. He has given this title to his rendering of the 7th canto. Indeed, this canto elaborately explains the scientific method by which God is revealed. We hear extensively from Krishna's exalted devotee Prahlad as he instructs his young schoolmates in this divine science, and then from the celebrated celestial sage Narad Muni, who likewise instructs Emperor Yudhishthir in the fine details of a spiritually progressive society. We have included a number of appendices to highlight the deeper meaning and significance of the concepts used throughout this great teaching. In his commentary, the 17th century saint Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this canto also focuses on uti, or inclination to act, which is the 5th item in the verse mentioned above. He writes, 2 types of uti inclination are described in the 7th canto: inauspicious, arising from anger of the demons, and auspicious, arising from the mercy of the devotees. This canto also glorifies devotees of 3 types: Shuddha Bhaktas, persons having bhakti mixed with a little Gyan or karma, which is also called Karma Mishra Bhaktas and Gyan Mishra Bhaktas, and persons having Gyan mixed with a little bhakti. These inclinations of Hiranyakashipu, which were inauspicious, were inborn. The cause was the ancient anger of the Kumaras, resulting in their cursing him. The inclination for pure bhakti of Prahlad, his son, which was very auspicious, rose from the mercy of Narad. That bhakti which appears within the devotees gave rise to the Lord's mercy upon him and protected him from his father. That creeper of bhakti, growing in a great field composed of humility, respect and other qualities, is nourished by the devotee by watering it through hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is from the Saratha Darshini 7.1.1 commentary. In his purpose to verses 91 and 92 of the 2nd chapter of the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada describes uti as the urge for creation or initiative power that is the cause of all inventions, according to the necessities of time, space, and objects. In our dramatic retelling of this canto, we draw mainly from Srila Prabhupada's purports and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentaries wherever we have felt it helpful to elaborate on a point. We have cited scriptural evidence to support our explanations. Since we are not liberated souls, the reader may detect errors in our efforts. Despite such flaws, we hope that you will at least feel inspired and encouraged to pursue more vigilantly your study of Srila Prabhupada's purports on this instructive canto. We humbly bow at the feet of our divine guide and master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and pray that he will be pleased with our humble attempt to serve him. Hare Krishna. So this is signed off by the writers Krishna Dharma Prabhu and Chintamani Dham Mataji. So let's begin the first chapter of Canto 7, The Science of God. The Supreme Lord is impartial. Parikshit applauded Shukadev as he ended his narration about the Pumsavana vow, which bestowed extraordinary benefits. He looked over at the assembled sages and said, This Srimad Bhagavatam can save anyone from the miseries of the Kali age. You must distribute it far and wide. So, in the earlier canto, Canto 6, this Pumsavana vow was elaborately told by Shukdev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. The sages called back, "Certainly we shall tell everyone we meet. The rising sun glinted on the Ganges, at it flowed gently by. A pod of dolphins played nearby, leaping and twisting their gleaming bodies, gracefully plunging into the clear waters. Parikshit and the ascetics' attention never left Shukdev. The sage smiled and said, 'What more would you like to hear, my dear king?' Parikshit thought for a moment. Indra inciting Lord Vishnu to kill Diti's sons was intriguing. What would Vishnu side with the gods against the demons? 'My dear Brahman,' he said, 'Lord Vishnu is celebrated as everyone's well-wishing friend. How then did he side with Indra against the demons? Surely that means he is not impartial.' 'The gods sought his shelter,' said Shukadev with a smile. 'It still makes little sense to me,' said Parikshit. 'The Lord is the reservoir of bliss. He does not need the gods to increase his pleasures, nor can the demons affect his happiness. What has he to gain by siding with the gods against the demons?' 'O great sage, if Vishnu is equal to everyone, please give me clear evidence. I am troubled by this doubt.' Shukadev looked pleased. 'An excellent question, my dear Parikshit. Great devotees like Narad and Vyasadev have answered this inquiry in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I will respond by referring to a narrative held most dear by the saintly, as it is full of glorification of Krishna and his devotees. You must first understand that Vishnu is transcendental to the material nature. Even when he appears in this world, he does so in his spiritual body. Untinged by material qualities, it only seems that he acts according to the duties and obligations that bind conditioned souls. The modes of nature are material and never touch the Lord's spiritual body. Each of them, goodness, passion, and ignorance, become prominent at different times. When one increases, the other decreases. The Lord, as a super soul in everyone's heart, knows each living being's desires and infuses them with the appropriate mode of nature. So this is so reassuring to know. And I'm grateful to read this sentence. And I would like to repeat it again. The Lord, as the super soul in everyone's heart, knows each living being's desires and infuses them with the appropriate mode of nature. The sages and gods who wish to obey the Lord are infused with the goodness. The demons who want to enjoy independently of Vishnu with passion, and the yakshas and rakshasas who want to enjoy at others' expense with ignorance, these modes become prominent or subdued in sequence just as the seasons come and go. When a particular mode becomes prominent, those controlled by it flourish. This happens in due course of time and is not because of the Lord's partiality. Vishnu lives unseen in everyone's heart, just as fire resides in wood, water in a cup, or ether in a pot. Fire is compared to goodness, water to passion, and ether to ignorance. Those in goodness abundantly manifest the Lord's power, displaying wondrous devotional acts by his grace. When in passion, he displays Vishnu's power to a lesser degree, and when in ignorance, that power is completely covered. A thoughtful person can thus understand how the modes of nature influence someone, and thus how the Lord is acting through him by the quality of his actions. The more devotional aptitude a person has, the more he is in goodness, and the more Krishna is favoring him. Again, this is not partiality. Everything is depends upon one's position under the modes of nature. Krishna is like the sun that always shines brilliantly in the heavens, but is perceived fully, partly, or not at all, depending upon the cloud cover. Parikshit said, what determines how the modes affect people? They work under Vishnu's direction, and he gives each living entity a body influenced variously by those modes, depending on the living being's prior nature and karmic destinies. He then enters each body and uses the mode of passion to develop it, goodness to maintain it, and ignorance to destroy it. Does he do all this personally? Shukadev shook his head. Ultimately, Krishna controls everything, the material and spiritual energies. However, he creates the time factor to supervise the material nature and the living entities entrapped by her. Parikshit asked, when he descends to the material universe, is he also under the control of the time factor? Certainly not, said Shukadev. He descends in his eternal spiritual body, never influenced by material nature or time. Parikshit said, apart from the Lord, time controls everyone else within the material sphere. Is that right? Yes. It is not Vishnu but time that favors the gods who are predominantly in the mode of goodness. Destroying the demons influenced by passion and ignorance, Krishna is always impartial. How can this be so, since under his control, time favors the gods and kills the demons? He sets up the framework under which time operates, but he does not oblige a living entity to gravitate toward a particular mode. He is therefore impartial toward all the living entities. When he intervenes, he acts gloriously. What do you mean? Let me give you an example. There was a demoness called Putana who killed many babies and who also tried to murder baby Krishna. Usually under the influence of time, such a heinous witch would be condemned to hell. Still, because Krishna was involved, he extraordinarily gave her a position as his mother in the spiritual world. I will recount another history concerning the demon Shishupal that shows the Lord's impartiality. Yudhishthir finished bathing Krishna's feet. He poured the washed water into a silver container and sprinkled it over the assembly of gods, sages, and kings. Cries of all glories to Lord Krishna and victory to the Lord filled the great hall. Near the back sat King Shishupal, Krishna's cousin. He had long harbored a deep hatred for Krishna, and hearing him glorified, he seethed with fury. He looked around at the cheering monarchs. It was intolerable. With a cry, he jumped up from his seat, shouting obscenities at Yudhishthir and his supporters. Bhima looked at him through narrowed eyes. He picked up his immense club and advanced menacingly toward him, but Bhishma seized his arm. So, two demons, one demon and another one is the demoness Putana. She got the position of mother, and how Shishupal, who despite being Krishna's cousin, was behaving in a totally demonic fashion. How he got the mercy, let's find out. He is not to be killed by you, said Bhishma. Bhim's eyes glowed red. I will not brook his insults to the emperor. As long as Krishna tolerates him, so must we. Fear not, the Lord will soon silence him forever. Even as Bhishma spoke, Krishna's brilliant disc weapon shot toward Shishupal and severed his head. To everyone's amazement, a glowing spark of light left Shishupal's body and hovered briefly in the air before entering Krishna's body. Yudhishthir gasped. He turned to Narad, who sat to his right amid other celestial sages. How astonishing, he exclaimed. Shishupal was most demonic and always envious of Krishna. How could he merge into Lord's body? So let us find out as well. The further reading. Renounced mystics meditate for many years to attain such liberation. How is it that Lord's sworn enemy was granted it? Narad said, Krishna is all-powerful. What is astonishing for him? Krishna can surely do anything, said Yudhishthir, but I am bewildered why he has shown Shishupal such extraordinary mercy. I have heard that Vena went to hell for blaspheming Krishna. Shishupal likewise deserved to go to hell. How is it? He merged into Krishna's body instead. This most sinful son of Damaghosh began blaspheming Krishna from his infancy before he could even speak properly, and he continued until his death. His brother Dantavakra was the same. So Dantavakra and Shishupal were both sons of Damaghosh, and both had almost same tendencies. They were all harboring animosity towards Krishna throughout their lives. Despite their repeated blasphemies, both these brothers lived healthy lives. White leprosy did not attract their tongues. Now I see that they have not even been condemned to hell. This is certainly most surprising. Yudhishthir swept his bejeweled hand around the assembly, indicating the sages and kings. All these exalted persons also witnessed this extraordinary event. See how they too sit with amazed expressions since Shishupal has merged into Krishna's body. I also presume that so will Dantavakra, who also bears unwavering enmity toward him. I am completely bewildered by this. O Narad, you know everything. Please explain the reason for this wonderful event. The rest of the assembly had become quiet, and all eyes were on Narad. Keen to hear his answer and livened by the opportunity to speak about Krishna, Narad addressed the assembly. Forgetful of their relationship with Krishna and the conditioned souls receive material bodies and experience the dualities of material existence like blasphemy and praise, chastisement and respect. My dear king, they suffer because they identify with their material bodies and everything related to them. Such false ego also causes the fear of death, and we should know that all of us in this material world are going through this. Krishna, however, is the Supreme Lord. He does not have a material body nor any false conception of himself. Therefore, unlike the conditioned souls, he is neither pleased by his devotees' prayers nor displeased by the atheists' blasphemy. He does not see anyone as a friend or enemy. It is for the demons' good when he chastises them, not because they disturb him. This is very powerful statement given by the writers here. Similarly, when he accepts the devotees' prayers, it is also to benefit them, not because he feels gratified. Narad looked around the vast assembly. Everyone sat in silence, their gaze fixed upon the sage as he continued. Krishna desires the living entities to think of him without deviation, thus they will certainly return to him. However, the terms on which they return depend on the mood of their meditation. For example, if they meditate on Krishna in hostility, they will merge into Lord's body, but if in a favorable mood, they will become Lord's friend, parent, or beloved, depending on their desire. Narad's expression became pensive. In my opinion, Shishupal is more fortunate than me. Yudhishthira shook his head. How can that be? You are Krishna's greatest devotees, always hearing about glorifying, remembering and serving him. Narad said, yes, but Shishupal's envy enabled him to achieve a more intense absorption in Krishna than I have. Yudhishthira sighed. I'm still confused. How can a wicked person merge into Krishna by constantly thinking of him with envy? Maybe this metaphor will help you understand, said Narad. When a small worm senses a wasp, it may hide in a hole to escape. If the wasp hovers over it, the worm will constantly think about it and fear and hatred. If the worm dies at the time, it will become a wasp in his next time. Similarly, if a conditioned soul always thinks of Krishna, who is entirely spiritual regardless of the mood of his meditation, he will be purified of his sins and attain a spiritual body in his next life. So very powerful analogy used by Narad to explain to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Now, considering this as just as Shishupal returned to Krishna by meditating on him with hatred, others giving up sin have gone to him by meditating on him out of fear, lust and affection. Let me give you some examples. The gopis meditated on Krishna with lusty desires, Kamsa with fear, Shishupal and other kings with envy, the Yadus with familial affection. You Pandavas meditate on him with great love. Devotees in general meditate on him according to the regulative principles of bhakti. By such meditation, everyone attains his mercy. Why did Vena did not attain salvation? He also hated Krishna. He did not meditate on Krishna's form. To achieve salvation, one must fix the mind on Krishna's form in any of the above 5 ways. Yudhishthir nodded. That explained why Shishupal had attained the liberation of Sayuchya Mukti. Why, though, did Shishupal and Dantavakra envy Krishna so much? He asked Narad. I can appreciate your confusion, replied the sage. After all, their mother is the sister of your mother and Krishna's father. Vasudev, you are all cousins. One would imagine you would all be friends. Yes, exactly, replied Yudhishthir. Why were they so hateful? There is an ancient history behind this, said Narad. They were previously personal associates of Lord Vishnu, but they fell from the spiritual world because of being cursed by Brahmins. Yudhishthir threw his head back. Really, what kind of curse could affect Krishna's eternal associates? Who would even curse such great souls? I find it hard to believe that the Lord's unalloyed devotees could ever fall into this material world. The residents of the spiritual world do not have material forms. They are completely spiritual. I'm curious to know how they were cursed to get material bodies like ordinary conditioned souls. Narad said, listen and I shall explain. Long ago, Brahma's 4 sons, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan and Sanat Kumar, were wandering throughout the 3 worlds. When they approached Lord Vishnu's abode, even though they are Brahma's eldest sons, they always appear like small naked children, around 5 or 6-year-old. When the 2 Vaikuntha doormen, Jai and Vijay, saw them, they mistook them to be ordinary children and barred their entry. The brothers became angry at Jai and Vijay. They accused them of acting in the modes of ignorance and passion. You are unfit to live in the Lord's abode, they said. Better you go immediately to the material world and take birth in a family of sinful demons. As the 2 doorkeepers fell, the 4 boy sages felt compassion. They called reassuringly to them, fear not, you will return to your positions in Vaikuntha after 3 births when the curse's duration ends. Jai and Vijay took birth in the womb of Diti as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and were highly respected by the demonic descendants of Diti and Danu, known respectively as Daityas and Danavas. Nrsingadev later killed the older son Hiranyakashipu. Before that, Varaha killed the younger brother Hiranyaksha. When he tried to stop the Lord from rescuing the earth planet from the Garbhodak ocean, why did Lord Nrsingadev kill Hiranyakashipu? Because he tried in many ways to torture and kill his pure devotee son Prahlad, yet all Hiranyakashipu's efforts failed. For Prahlad was protected by the Lord, who is sober, peaceful, and kind to everyone. Yudhishthir said. So Jai and Vijay's first births were as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and they were both killed by Lord Vishnu. Yes, their second births were as Ravan and Kumbhakarna, sons of Vishrava, is in the womb of his wife Keshini. In those births, they again caused much trouble throughout the universe. Lord Ramchandra killed both brothers to free them from the Brahmin's curse. O Narad, kindly narrate the history of their deaths at Lord Ram's hand. My dear King Yudhishthir, Sage Markandeya will come to your court shortly. You can hear this history from him. What was the third birth of Jai and Vijay? They took birth as your maternal cousins, Shishupal and Dantavakra. Struck dead by Krishna's disc weapon, all their sinful reactions were destroyed and they were freed from the curse. Despite being Krishna's enemies for 3 births, by always thinking of him with an immense adversarial mood, they have now regained his shelter and attained the spiritual world. I thought they merged into Krishna's body. It may have looked like that, but the truth is they returned to Vaikuntha through Krishna's body. Yudhishthir sat absorbed in thought for several moments and then said, "O Narad, why did Hiranyakashipu try to kill his son, Prahlad? Also, how did Prahlad become Krishna's pure devotee? Would you kindly explain all this to me?" So we'll continue reading from chapter 2. Next time, the demon king, Hiranyakashipu. Thank you for joining. Hariam Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Granth Raj Bhagavatam ki Jai.